Oh, should we drag you on? Come on.
Come on.
In you come.
In you come.
Come on.
You're on air, lads.
We are on there. No.
Yeah,
come in.
on,
Stand
come
in.
in.
Have a seat. I'll stand up.
Where do we just chill out and
Yeah, that's it.
have a chin wag?
How are you?
It's not too bad.
We were talking about you, actually.
Oh no.
We found you hilarious. We thought you should be a comedian.
Really?
Yeah.
What, from honesty towards people's mistakes? Or?
Yeah.
Actually quit the day job and become a comedian.
No, I'm not that funny. Even though I have already been told before I got like a face for radio and everything, it's I feel as though I should really stick to just doing what I normally do.
Yeah. What is it that you normally do?
Yes, tell us.
So I deal with small scale volume breweries for Simply Hops. So
I've got your card, actually. I'm going to go around and show it up to the camera while you carry on talking.
just sort of people that are working their way through from home brewing up into normal scale production, or for smaller breweries that have worked with other merchants and then want to work with us for other product range. Anything kind of under 10 barrel brew length.
Oh, so that's us, really.
Yeah,
that's us.
Well, that is under 10 barrels.
Feels like we should have this conversation.
Are you going to come to Worcester and see us and set a time on Mario Kart for us and be a special guest?
I could try my best to come over, but yeah, for sure.
That'd be wonderful.
I'm not very good at Mario Kart.
There's some people that aren't very good that have set
Is it like green shells and bananas, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. But this is a time trial, so there's no green shells and bananas. It's just you and the track.
No mushrooms.
Spirit. Oh,
there is mushrooms. Yes.
There is mushrooms. But someone had a bit of controversy.
You can't use too many in one go.
So we had to discount
You
the
get into
time.
trouble if you use too many mushrooms.
They got a bit angry and a bit upset.
Why is that though? Like, surely it's free for all. Like, if it's on the track, it's on the track. Then, like, it's their fair game, right? That's.
Wow, yeah.
Wow,
no.
yeah. Well, we went a different route. We put in some limitations.
Surely it's like a wet lap on the top of the air track. Like, some people were really, really fast on that, but then it rained and they were lower, and you think, oh, they should have been faster, and then they'd come back, and then
they
mushrooms is the same logic.
Yeah.
Yes. We need to come and see you as well, actually.
Yeah, you should.
We'll bring our cameras and lights and.
Yeah, you should come down and do some stuff with us. So the building we've got has got a pellet mill in it, and we have some other sort of extract production stuff, and some big fridges full of bales of hops. And
I'd love to see that.
Actually, I think people would be really interested in that, because we were at the talk yesterday and heard about how the pelletizer works.
There's not much on YouTube or anything really online that I've found you could watch physically. Everything.
Well, it's quite enclosed. It's a load of brewery tanks, but for hops rather than like a brewery. But
so what actually happens? You get a big bale of hops that's harvested.
Yeah, so a bale will come in, and then that either then gets cut up by basically a big combine harvester blade, and then it goes onto a belt and gets homogenised, and then thrown into a tunnel with a big ram on it, and that slams it down into a pack of 5 kilo hops and they come either from Europe in 60 kilos or from the US in 100, because health and safety doesn't matter apparently for lift weight. But you're talking a bale is like a metre high for 60 kilos, about 1.5 metres high for each bale, so they fill up quite a lot of volume and space and weight. But then for pelletizing, what they do is they take those bales and they put them into a big hammer mill, and that throws it into dust, and then that goes into a pellet mill, and that comes out as like the pellets that you have, obviously. We don't really process much in the UK other than UK hops or Belgian hops or the odd smaller French or some German stuff of a smaller quantity, because the pellet plant that we have in the UK is quite a small one, whereas the ones that we have in America and Germany can produce as much in sort of like a day as it takes us to make in a month. So the scales that you find in the growing regions are much higher than what we have in our UK system, but it's still interesting to kind of see. At the moment they're processing some other stuff, not just hops, so it would be depending on what you could see is whether or not it's hops or these other things that organic material that share very similar kind of things, so we can process. I think it's pharmaceutical we're doing work for at the moment for CBD.
Wow.
But they need to use the same process, and they struggle to find space for things like that. So I hope, but if you were to come round sort of towards November time, post-harvest, you'd be able to see like the hops going through the system, because they kind of do them fresh off the farm.
There we go.
We need to organise that.
Pre-Christmas tour. Honestly, go for some beers in the evening. We need to plan better, because we came here without really a day where we can actually just drink and chill out. That was poor planning. We won't do that again.
I had a couple yesterday.
Did you go out into Leeds?
No, not really. I went home we were here till 11ish, so didn't bother too much. Tonight might be a bit different because it finishes at 8 o'clock. So, but I had a cheeky half in North Bar at 11:15 this morning, and
we went to North Bar.
We went to North Bar. Yeah,
which one did
the North Tap Room Bar. Sorry, not the North.
Yeah, we went to the one that's like
just a couple of streets that way.
Yeah. So we went to that this morning. So we had breakfast and then went there.
Maybe I missed you by just a little bit. I left about 11.
I think we
were in there probably about 12.
And then wandered over here, and I've just had a couple of refreshing ones now. The North Sea Pale on cask, it's only 4.5%.
That's exactly what I'm drinking.
Nice and fruity and juicy, and
you had it
on keg. I had it on cask yesterday.
All beer's better in casks. That's why
it suited cask more. But I wanted to try it on keg just to have a little comparison. But cask is better.
Now, we heard it yesterday, but we'll repeat it again. What do you reckon? Should it be leaf hops or pellet hops?
It varies on brew house and preference, but
Slammer.
If you're a brewery that is pushing forward more modern style beer, and you then use other ingredients that are produced in a modern way, then why would you use hops that are supposedly meant to be traditional method? I guess it sort of breaks the point of
one of the things that because we show everything here, and when we show on camera, we'll show sort of leaf hops, which look that's fresh, and that looks like it's looks like a hop, but then you show pellets, which looks to a naked eye maybe like sort of rabbit food.
Yeah, a lot of people say rabbit food or drop-ins, depending on who makes them.
Yeah. But obviously there are a lot of advantages to using pellets over leaf hops.
Yeah, efficiency. You get more alpha acid out of it, and more flavour and access to better flavour. Because the idea of the flower itself and of the cone is the leaves are there to protect your lupulin. So regardless of you boiling it or whatever, you'll never quite get everything out of that product that you want it to be. The plant is naturally stopping you from getting it.
The lupulin is exactly what you want from the hop. You don't need anything else from it.
Yeah, there are oils and other compounds in the flowers, so that's why it's important.
Right, Craig?
How's it going? We're live at the moment. Yeah, the camera's here. Come and say hello. The talk. You'll need to head around this way and then
just in front of the Balbin store.
Yeah. That's all right. See you in a bit.
That's right. So the cone is protecting it, whereas if you then hammer mill it and throw it into a pellet, and the pellet will then break up once you put it in the boil, you'll have that access to that throughout your beer, and it makes it much easier, much more flavour. In theory, you could use less. That's kind of why they invented it. If you were producing big beer, that was kind of the point, is that they could use less volume with a better efficiency, with better access to the hops. They could then buy less hops. But with craft beer, you always want to push the aroma, so you would use the same amount and you'd get plus flavour aroma. That's kind of where it comes into place with dry hopping, the same way that the new pellet formats were designed to kind of increase efficiency, increase flavour, and then also use a lower percentage of those products. So you could then, by making a newer, more efficient hop product, you could use less of the former, but people found if they used it the same way, they'd get so much more flavour and aroma that they wanted to use more, and they use more and more and more and more and more, and that's how you kind of have got juicy New England IPA, is from these cryogenically produced hop varieties that really are super efficient because they're so evenly made, and they give you like perfect distribution either in the kettle or in the dry hop. You can use them in either way. They work just as well with that greater efficiency, but you could use less and you'd match the same kind of flavour as you would either with leaf or with a normal T90 pellet. But it's kind of that evolution really. If you want to make modern beer, why are you limiting yourself so much with such an old format? If you're going to make a copy of a heritage IPA with all of your recipe spec with like crisp Chevalier malt, and then like a London ESB from Lallemand yeast, you've got those two like quite heritage other products of like an 1800s barley variety, and also then a yeast strain that can be dated back to sort of 1700s. Fine, use leaf for that beer. I have no problem with that. But then if you're going to make a New England with some especially bred like clear choice barley and all this stuff that's really had lots of like development and growing work into it to make that the best thing it can be in a modern product, and then you use leaf rather than using like the modern alternative of the pellet. It's the best thing you can use for flavour. It just seems odd. And that's kind of if you want to do it your way, fine. I don't want to stop people from making great beer, because there's still some, Oakham Citra is like still the best Citra beer, the most like flagship UK breweries beer with Citra that tastes fantastic, brews with leaf, and you get a lovely, lovely flavour from it. But they kind of want to make the same beer as they were making in the last 10 years, and that's fine. Then you then look at something else. Trying to now think of another more modern beer with Citra in off the Daya, do some great stuff, but they're using more modern other hops. They're using the most modern type of pellet product with also more modern malt, and trying to produce a sort of a nice punchy hazier beer. Same with kind of the stuff we're drinking here with Northern Monk, with things like Eternal. There's a lot of Citra Mosaic in those, but they're like, it's modern format, newer stuff for modern beer with those kind of newer things. And that's really where it comes in. It's like, don't try and, yes, it's nice, don't think you're reinventing the wheel, but at the same time, kind of think if you're making something newer, you've got your touchscreen grandfather that links to your phone, and you're taking the methodology of the 1800s with you because it feels more traditional, right? Where's the logic?
Yeah, lovely. Okay. There's a few things I wanted to ask you, actually. BBC. Talk to us about BBC.
So BBC Pure Hop Pellets,
which is not the British Broadcasting.
It's not the British Broadcasting Corporation, no.
Taking your jokes here.
That's all right. No, it's good.
There is another one, but we won't talk about that.
No, it's Boston Beer Company. Boston Beer Company were conditioning, following tips they'd picked up from the Czech Republic of using long, flat, rather than using conical tanks, they're using long, sort of like the serving tanks you see people serving pivo out of, etc. Because you get nice dropout and the temperature is more even, and there's less hydrostatic pressure on the beer, and the carbonation levels are softer, and all this other stuff for the kind of lagers and pale ales they were making in the 1980s. But then when they would dry hop, the problem that they had was that they would lose a huge volume of beer in that tank to the hops absorbing the beer, and the flavour was great, but at the scale of production that they were producing it at, they were losing quite a lot of money, and the tax system works differently for beer in the US as well. So they were still paying like duty on what they were throwing away and alcohol, etc.
Oh dear, that's terrible.
So you're thinking like, how can I increase this or change this? And it's got better since then, from what I understand. But then the laws have changed from what that was archaic. But they were like, well, how can we get better things? So they went to their hop merchant, which at the time was John O'Haas, who were one of our parent sort of within our company of the Vast House Global Group, and they said, can you work out a way to do this and where we will lose less work and like produce some better beer but still keep the high flavour? And they were like, okay. So they looked back to an old method of T45 pellet production, which is again goes back to big beer wanting efficiency for less hops. What they do is they mill the hops down, and then they will sieve out fractions of the leaf and the other material to make enriched pellets. But they are more expensive because to make that enriched process, they have to do it at minus 35 degrees Celsius. Because otherwise the lupulin, anyone's rubbed tops, you get it like all the yellow sticky stuff on your fingers because of the heat. Well, if you do that cold, it will stay as a solid yellow substance. So when you process that, to keep that even throughout the product as you move into that sort of more advanced product, you kind of need to process it at that temperature to keep that quality there so you don't damage it. So what they did is they made this proprietary system where they were able to sieve out, well, they worked out that the part that absorbs the most hop is the central strig and sort of like where the glands form on the bracts. That's known as a woody part of a hop because it's kind of what's attaching the branch almost to the vine.
We almost need your presentation here, don't we? We'll put some, when we edit the video out, we'll put some images of a hop cone in there for
Most
you.
people have held a hop, they can kind of work out what they get. But essentially what they do is they mill it and then they sieve that part out. But rather than look to take the leaf fraction out with it and make this enriched lupulin thing, they then put the leaf fraction back in. So what you've essentially got was a whole cone without all the bits that absorb all your work.
Right.
Because in the leaf also includes a lot of the other oil fractions, the smaller percentage of oil fractions that give you other kind of nuanced flavours within a variety.
So those leaf bits are going to add different flavours.
Yeah, they're important to kind of keep the profile of the variety as what you think it to be. Otherwise you'll have like sarts that taste like Cascade and you're like, why is that?
So like, what I want to ask is, you can isolate the lupulin, I'm assuming. Like, it's got that advanced. So if you, is it an oil? Is that what they use?
When they just...
You isolate the lupulin from a hop.
So that is in they're isolating the oil,
Yeah.
but they're not. Yeah, they're just sieving it out. Like
Okay.
It's like very, very fine sieves.
Let's see.
I don't know the diameter. They'll never tell anybody. But that's kind of good because it
It's the
means that.
second time we've had sort of trade secrets that we've got towards and then sort
Trade
of...
secrets.
Yeah, we had a guy yesterday who was talking about making his extract kits and how he goes back, reverse engineers it, and he's like, can't tell you that. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. I did want to... One thing I found interesting yesterday was the Citra. If you take Citra, it could be vastly different between different farms.
Yeah.
What you do is sort of combine it, which reminds me of whiskey almost.
Yeah, so you would take, or like the same as well, any kind of like, you take the New Belgium idea for blending where they'll take a thread and then they weave the threads into the bottle and that's how you've got your, kind of like your release, is that you have too many extremes of flavour and you have to bring those flavours into a blend, and that's kind of that. It's like, otherwise you would have... So some breweries will look to select top bales from the farm and they feel like they want that particular flavour, but so they will have no fluctuation. But there is always the danger that as that ages, it changes its flavour and then you get the wild extremes. But because you've selected that, it's difficult to then sell it back into the market because you've picked your one thing. With a blend of hops into a pellet, into a certain batch of pellets from various farms, they will match up their very best to kind of hit the specifics of a varietal flavour, so that your beer is as consistent as it can be year to year to year to year to year. Leaf, they will select the best they can from that set of leaf. So they can't blend it, but they will pick the best ones that don't have either very, very, very Citra or sort of Citra. You will never find that in leaf. You'll always find the middle ones. But with pellets, you're able to play more and move things in and make sure that it's so that you don't have people disappointed by what they're using. You expect a hop to taste a certain way, and in certain harvests you can't win. Sarts last year suffered from that. It picked up a load of more grassy notes than it normally has and was less citrusy, but they still blended it to make it better than it was in certain regions where it really had no oil or it had loads and it wasn't right. And that's kind of the danger of provenance. You pick one area and it will always have, yes, it has terroir and it has like that region's flavour, but it might not actually be what you think it is, and it has what you want it to be. So that's kind of why it's good to use pellets, because they will be more consistent across your beer. If you want to make the same beer taste the same way again and again and again, leaf could probably do it because you're picking the best of that year, but then you will really see the fluctuations between the years. But pellets, you won't see that because it's, or less so. You'll still see it, but
Try and keep it.
but you've got to try and keep it consistent. So, but obviously it's all for commercial brewing. If you're doing small scale, you still see it to an extent.
Does that mean we can go over to America and brew the same recipe but with different Citra hop harvests?
And it'll all taste different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting video.
You're trying to get a free trip to America on the company. I think you are. That's what's happening here.
Doing it for the people.
Yes, okay.
Doing it for the people.
Let us know if you want to. If you want to, I think resounding yes would be the answer.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting beer to try. Actually, I'd be interested in trying that.
Or just
it doesn't have to be just Citra. You do it for all.
Oh, and then we could go to Europe and get some European hops as well. Wonderful. I'm trying to think of.
I mean, you can do it with. I don't know if you were to find people. So everyone will grow in their garden some hops nowadays. You could do it even with green hop, like from different gardens. It's the same logic.
He's growing hops, isn't he?
Yeah, he's growing his own hops.
But then Mike at home, he wanted to grow some hops.
Yeah, well, we've got a viewer who watches who wants to grow his own hops.
But none of them will taste the same from one town to the next or one garden to the next. And
they're living things, aren't they? They're hard to control.
But if you were to put them all together, you could probably kind of get what you thought. It's just that between everyone's. That's why when you make like with Manchester's hop growing project, they'll get a general kind of Englishy hoppiness from it. But if they were to brew their own specific beer, they'll get like extremes of flavour across all the different things, even if it's all the same one hop. You see that a lot. So I help organise a camera festival in Kent. But we have 40 green hop beers from all the breweries in Kent, and it's real terroir, and it's all produced within 6 weeks. And we drink it within 6 weeks of it being brewed. It was picked and put in the beer within 12 hours, and you can have two beers both picked from the same farm, two random breweries, totally different. And that's kind of the thing, because it is that. But then you drink their standard version of that beer, and it tastes the same as. Or the flavours are the same as one to another. So like Thornbridge and 5 Points are now doing, Thornbridge are calling it an English cellar beer, but it's a bitter. And 5 Points are releasing their best bitter, but it's clever. It's a good way of like spinning it. I don't disagree. It's just people are getting confused about what it is. But they both use the same hops from the same farm. They taste very similar. But then if they were to do that as a green hop beer, they would probably find that the flavour was totally odd compared to the two beers because of the time frame and where perhaps the vine was picked and the style of the beer. And that's kind of the thing. You would get that nuanced flavour between that time frame.
I wanted to ask you about the creative products or new products, or things that are pushing the boundary right at the edge.
Yeah, so the creative stuff is essentially. So it started off mostly with one of our blends called Yellow Sub, which was a replacement for Amarillo in the year that Amarillo all tasted like onions. No matter what people did, Amarillo tasted like onions. So we took a load of other
hops, doesn't he? He puts his nose in and he goes onion.
Yeah. And so they took a blend of hops, no idea what they are, but they smell and taste like Amarillo when you brew them. They also taste quite a lot like Mosaic as well, but they have quite a big red berry hip, and then they have a big spicy kick as well, like you would get with the Amarillo. It works very well as either too. If you can't get either Amarillo or Mosaic, it's a good addition, as long as you try and like aim it up with another hop that tastes quite quite berry-esque. You can use it quite well with in replacement of Mosaic. But essentially, what you've got is there was the need for the market to have a kind of a substitute for people that wanted to use it in their beer in that way. And then from the back of that, they went, well, people also ask for like a peach beer, but we can't always find stone fruit peach flavours in US and Australian hops without contract. So they made Fantasia, which is a creamy, peachy flavour.
Fantasia.
So what is it? What's it come as?
Comes as the same as a normal T90 pellet.
Yeah.
You add it and dose it the same as you would any other hop, but you will get that flavour. But if you're specifically looking for a certain flavour or aroma in a hop, which is what I'm going to talk about today, you want to try and pick those flavours and pick your hops based on the flavours rather than going, I want Mosaic in this because it's going to be like a Mosaic New England IPA. Yeah. What you should actually say is, I want quite a red berry or a green fruit, like there's either a kiwi or like a softer citrus fruit or like pears or whatever, and you base those like identified fruit flavours around, then find your harvest guide of what the flavours are in each hop, and then go through and go, oh well, that one's got quite a lot of that and I can buy that easily, whereas I can't get any Mosaic. That's how you kind of, and that's why those blends are there. They're there for you to kind of look at it in that way. Oh, I can't buy a passion fruit hop; it's all sold out. Oh, I'll use TNT. That works quite well. Has an explosive hop flavour in the beer. A little bit of a corny name, but it works.
TNT.
Oh, I missed that joke. I've just got it. That was slow of me, wasn't it?
But no, it's cool. And then the other really interesting one that we've got, which Malt Miller have got to try upstairs, is the Provoke. So that's again a blend of hops, but then also with wood chips in it. And it gives you the opportunity to, with pale beer, if you oxidise it, it will taste of cardboard. You can mask a lot of those flavours with malt and with higher alcohols, and that's why Imperial Stouts work quite well, and a lot of Imperial Dark beers, Porter Stouts, whatever, anything stronger like darker, it works better with wood because as it oxidises, you lose that cardboard flavour is lost in the richness of the alcohol and the malt. But you wouldn't want to do that for a pale ale. So you can make almost barrel-aged pale ale with 2, 3, 4 day dry hop, no oxygen, and you get those wood flavours, and they come with a white wine sort of esque European oak, and then toasted US oak for more of a bourbon touch. They're virgin, but you won't really get spirit character with it, but it's nice to be able to play with wood flavour and not ruin your beer. Which is always difficult.
I see Sam walking around there. Have you tried our beer? Yeah.
I have not, actually. I have not.
Oh,
Have you not tried it?
No.
It is a tasting. I don't know when it's happening.
It's happening soon. We might be.
We said
half an hour ago. Mate, hopefully the other guys have sorted it out. Have we got Lalamon waiting there?
Lalamon
to
waiting.
us?
Yeah.
We might have to say
Do you want me to drop out and I let you have young Andy come and have a chat?
I might come with you to go show you our beer.
Yeah, please. Let's go.
Okay, and I'll stay. Can you end the stream?